Hello, I'm Dwane McFerrin, Senior Vice President of Medicare Solutions for Senior Market Sales. There's a lot going on in the Medicare Advantage space and the Part D space. A big announcement is that CMS announced a 2.48% increase in reimbursement to carriers. Why is that important? Because the original proposed was 0.09%, so essentially no increase. So the 2.48% is welcomed by carriers. If you look at the stock on those carriers, you'll see that they jumped nicely in after-hours trading right after the announcement was made. So good news in that regard. However, I don't expect that that's going to mean that we're in a growth market again. I'm expecting 2027 to be the third year of market contraction, where we'll see PPO plans in particular essentially eliminated nationwide. What I do think is the growth opportunity will be chronic special needs plans. Those seem to be the plan of choice. Carriers get extra reimbursement based on the coding that goes with it. Those are folks that are definitely being treated with conditions that require a special product. And so expect to see CSNP or chronic special needs plans continue to expand. Incorporate that into your business practice. That is the one area where I expect to see planned expansion in 2027. Also, in the final rule, CMS announced changes on how quality stars calculated and actually dropped 11 metrics and focused more now on outcome rather than just transactions or statistics. That's probably good news, but it also means that carriers are going to have to work harder. One of the things that we'd be really concerned about with outcome-based is do your clients go to the doctor? One large carrier told me they had 1.5 million of their members that had not seen a doctor in 16 months. Don't be surprised if we see benefit activation and additional role for agents going forward, as carriers are certainly going to be encouraging clients to go see their doctor. And also for quality stars and for upcoding, if you will, it needs to be evidenced by what a doctor has prescribed. So expect to see more change in that regard. A lot of good news on regulation for 2027. And by the way, these things begin June 1st of this year. So if you like to conduct educational workshops, and many agents do, what you'll find is you no longer have to wait 12 hours before doing an enrollment. You can do the enrollment immediately following your educational workshop. And also the scope of appointment you can actually collect at the educational workshop. To make matters better, you won't have a 48-hour cooling off period anymore for the scope of appointment form. So some good news there. It's really logical. Consumers, when they're ready to buy, they're ready to buy. And it's good to see that CMS recognized that. One of the things that's kind of caught me by surprise last year was the calculation of out-of-pocket costs for Part D, where we knew that the $2,000 was the max out-of-pocket, but you'd run a quote and it might show $1,300. And because manufacturer discounts were also included in the calculation. So CMS has corrected that. For 2027, the consumer will have, I believe, $2,100 out of pocket. Things like manufacturer discounts will not apply. If you like to use superlatives, and what salesperson doesn't use some superlatives like best or better, most, you'll be able to do that going forward. Now, keep yourself specific to what you're describing. Don't be too general, but the use of superlatives will be allowed. In the past, you've required to retain records, the phone conversation for 10 years. Going forward is 6 years, and the last 3 years can actually be through dictation. You wouldn't have to actually keep the recording. So those of you that have spent a lot of money on storage, you've seen some relief that's come from that. Flex cards. Flex cards, really the emphasis should be on what qualifies to be reimbursed using a flex card or to be paid for using the flex card rather than the amount. The complaints that came in because the consumer was getting X amount of money, but then they wanted to use it for many unapproved items was really excessive. So CMS is stating, as you advertise, as you promote the Flex card, you really need to be talking about what qualifies, not just the amount itself. We continue to see the birthday rule being a major issue on Medicare supplement. States just recently announced, I believe it was New Mexico and West Virginia. That brings us to 23 states that are using the birthday rule or some version of guarantee issue. So that's certainly a concern. Now, there's legislation in Minnesota that was passed in 2023 that allows a surcharge to be applied when a consumer leverages or exercises the guarantee issue right. We're certainly advocating for that in a number of states. So in terms of the advocacy that Senior Market Sales is involved in, both NABIP as well as NAFA, we're very active in both organizations, really striving to make sure that agents are properly represented. In particular, we're advocating that after a carrier has their plans approved for 2027 in August, that there shouldn't be allowed to manipulate enrollment methods or agent compensation. Things should be fixed. And so that's something that we're advocating for with both NABIP and with NAFA. We're also encouraging the applied use of AI for you to do your job, to think of it as 24/7, the ability to service your customers, not only answering their questions, but even assisting them in making a coverage determination. So AI has a role, and we're looking for how we empower agents using AI. Also, the Inflation Reduction Act certainly had a big impact on shifting the burden to carriers, which has resulted in carriers exiting the market without reimbursement to follow, or at least curtailing their plan offerings. So we're definitely encouraging the changes to the Inflation Reduction Act, the unintended consequences that came along with it. One other change from CMS was the special election period that was proposed for provider change, and that was defeated. So in addition to what's been approved, knowing that the provider change has not been approved is pretty important. We were very concerned about it in terms of how a carrier would negotiate with a provider. You can bet the providers were in favor of the provider change SEP, but it would have probably resulted in year-long selling that would not have been in line, if you will, with the whole idea of the annual election period. Also, there could be provider fraud, consumer fraud, and overuse by agents that would really be problematic. So we were advocating that either have clear definitions of enforcement and definitions, or not provided at all, and CMS determined not to provide it at all. Check out the blog and learn more.